the Prince Magnum channel. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome once again to a look in our past. Today, I'm just going to be kind of narrating this video. Uh, I think the visual aid is going to be a little bit more helpful to all of you, more so than if I got on camera. Uh, we're going to be talking about street sleepers. Now, for those of you who do not know what street sleepers are, or have heard of them but not super familiar with them, we're going to talk a little bit about that, what they are, and things like that. And, we've all heard the stories. I've heard of them, I've seen them. Basically, it's that car that shows up where everybody's racing. It doesn't look like much. A lot of times they smoke. They sound like, everything's falling apart on the car. It's the last car you would suspect that at the moment the flag drops, all of a sudden the machine itself comes alive and turns into a monster. Uh, the car takes off and blows away, one of the fastest cars in the community, and you're sitting there going, how the heck did that happen? We've all heard those stories. Shoot, I've even seen them, and a couple of times I was a part of. We're going to get down to the deception of this, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what a street sleeper is really, really, truly about. Okay, let's start off with the first thing you need to know. What is a street sleeper? This is the car that, as I just said, you don't suspect. It doesn't look like much. But it's the car that, basically you don't think high performance when you see this car, but it has everything to do with high performance. Um, it's usually the car that just blends in with its surroundings. In the old days, it was a lot of times it was a four-door or it was a full-size car or some little compact car. Um, it just didn't look like much. Uh, it might have dents all over it, might have huge rust holes. That's really the crux of it all. It is the car that blends in, and it's the last car you would suspect at being a street sleeper. Um, it is the ultimate sleight of hand in the custom car world. Okay, let's get to the next part. Why do we build them? Why would you want one? Well, we live in a society where a lot of people really don't, the general public doesn't like high performance cars, and the police don't like them. Typically, high performance cars, um, they're associated with bad driving or just dangerous driving. Take a look at the Mustang memes. Um, these cars, basically, everyone already doesn't like those high performance cars. Well, the street sleeper, you could do all the high performance stuff you really want to without noticing. They slip under the radar. Give you a great example. Over in Park Hills, they have an anti-cruising law, and if they see you cruise by 3 times or more in a certain area, well, you're cruising and you could get pulled over. High performance cars are already on the radar. A street sleeper looks like everything else. It isn't high performance, and you're less likely to get noticed. So, something to think about. Alright, now my favorite part. How do we build one? Okay, first thing you need to know is if you're looking at a Mustang, a Camaro, something that something that we would typically associate with high performance, you're already going in the wrong direction. You're already heading in the way wrong direction. This car needs to be usually like small economy cars that has a wide aftermarket available. Now, at one time, Project Spirit would have been ideal for a street sleeper, but today, not so much. Cars like that we already suspect at being performance cars. We've just learned over the years that cars like that are great at hiding, custom engines and things like that, so we already suspect something like Project Spirit. Uh, Big full-size four-doors are ideal for this as well. They have huge engine bays, and because they're big and they're bulky, guess what? You don't suspect them at being super fast. Um, and the newer you get as far as that goes, they're even better. So just remember big and bulky, or four doors of any size and shape, or really tiny cars that you just do not suspect. That's the first thing you're looking for. Uh, a great example would be, say, like a 1998 Mercury Grand Marquis. Now it looks identical to the Crown Vics, but the Crown Vics we already suspect because of the simple fact that they made police cruisers out of those. Well, the Grand Marquis from Mercury is a luxury car, and it's big, it's bulky. Actually weighs in at about a couple hundred pounds more than the Crown Vic of the same year, and no one suspects those. You're already heading in the right direction. The next thing you need to remember, very importantly, the car has to blend in with its surroundings. Uh, your plum crazy purples and certain dark color blues and with pinstripes, and you're already going in the way wrong direction. You want earthy tones, browns, golds, uh, colors that just don't look appealing to the eye. Certain olive colors from back in the day were perfect street sleeper camouflage. You want your car to blend in as much as possible. Okay, it can't draw attention. Like the picture I'm doing right now, this brown color, perfect for a street sleeper. This Maverick really doesn't look like it should have all that much in performance, but it could. You don't know. The next thing you need to remember is the car has to be void of badges. Now, if you have an old car from the 60s and it has the cubic inch displacement of a 350, you're already suspect. You don't want your car to display anything that says how big the engine is, and if you do have anything that says how big the engine, you want it to lie. A great example of this would be Project Spirit. Okay, she has an inline 250, but if I was going to put a badge on her that said the size of the engine, I would say something like a 200. See where this is going? It's opposite of what the posers and the racers do today. I call them posers, you call them racers. You don't want to tell the truth, and you don't want to you don't want to exaggerate. You want to lie. You don't want anyone to suspect. The same thing with your interior. It must look as plain as possible, uh, void of custom gauges and anything that says my car is fast. Um, Back in the day, if I wanted to do street sleeping, the first thing I did was automatic on the column. I just had it adjusted where it was downright perfect and nobody would suspect it. They don't see the automatic on the floor. It looked like every other car. Um, Automatics on the floor are perfect. Your old three on the trees were perfect. Um, you wanted to avoid vehicles, you wanted to avoid that look that said, I'm fast. So anything on the floor, already suspect. So just remember, you want it to be void of that. Also, I'll tell you even how deep the deception could even go. Um, I'd heard of a guy that was street racing, and he was going as far as he had the triple dash cluster, the three triple gauges, the amperage, the temperature, and oil pressure, but he had it hidden behind a panel. He pulled up to the line to race, removed the panel, gauges were right there ready and waiting, and they worked. These are ideal things that you're looking for. So remember, the deception must be deep. It must not look like you have a performance car. Um, it has to be very, very subtle. Also, even under the hood, make sure that you're keeping it as close to stock looking as possible. A lot of times you don't know what a person's done to the engine unless you took it apart completely. A 283, a 327, a 350, any Chevy small block looks just like another Chevy small block. So you can build, a 350 and go custom, go 30 over, and do all this crazy stuff, and it looks and sounds just like a stock 350. Nobody will know the difference. Also, remember, single exhaust or quiet, very quiet dual exhaust is the way to go. You guys that run those poser mobiles out there with a decan muffler, you're already going in the wrong direction anyways, even though we already know that the decan just kills the performance, but loud tells you high performance. So go the other direction. Quiet. You don't want to draw attention. And if you're street racing or you're doing those back road drifts, whatever, you're already going in the wrong direction. Just remember, the more attention you draw, the more you're going to get noticed. So just bear that in mind. Go the other way. Deception. Deception. Okay? Remember, in the custom car world, street sleepers are the ultimate sleight of hand, as you would see in a big full-scale magic show. Alright, that brings us to the end of this episode of Looking Into Our Past. I hope you all enjoyed it. I had a great time, racking my brain, and remembering this stuff. And because I love to throw little bonuses at you, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you a funny story. Back in about 2004, I showed earlier in this video a 77 Oldsmobile Delta 88. This was a street sleeper. I used to have one, and it was the ultimate street sleeper because it was a little beat up, but you couldn't tell what had been done. I had custom racing ceramic brakes up front. I had a 350 turbo with a shift improvement, a B&M shift improvement kit. The 350 was stock, but not as stock as you would think. I had custom parts all over this thing. The exhaust was quiet, had a nice, low dual exhaust rumble. And a funny story, it was right after a big snow, and I pulled up. It pulled into this gas station where over in Farmington, where now is Qdoba, but it used to be a gas station, and it used to be known as Ken's BP. And I pulled in there, and there was this guy in some sort of late model Toyota Celica, and he had some work done and everything. And it sounded pretty nice, but back then I turned my nose up at stuff like this. Today, I just admire it. But it was a good-looking car, even back then. And I was taking a friend of mine home, and who would have been his mother-in-law, we jumped in the old, my old Delta, and we took off. Well, this guy had a carload of women with him. And him and the gals get in a big hurry. I guess I should have known right away what they were doing. We get to the end of cars getting ready to hit the on-ramp to 67 to start heading towards Deloge. And we're sitting there. Guy pulls up, and he's revving this thing. And I knew it was built. And I looked over at my buddy. I said, "What do you think?" He's like, "I don't know. It sounds pretty beefy. I don't know if the Oldsmobile can do it." I said, "I think she can do it." Well, from the back seat, his future, who would have been his mother-in-law, starts screaming out, "Smoke him! Smoke him!" So that's all I needed to hear. I basically put the Delta in neutral, and I started racking those pipes, and they knew what was up. They knew what was up. The guy knew right away he was going to get beat. This is what that street sleeper thing is about, because he didn't think that it had it. Well, I locked it down into low gear and gave it, held my foot down on the brake and started giving it a little bit of gas so my takeoff would be, really good and solid. Well, it was after a big snow, so my back tire was kind of sitting, one of my back wheels was kind of sitting on a patch of ice, so I knew I was going to slip a little bit. And he has a front wheel drive, so I knew he was going to beat me out of the hole. Light turns green, just as I suspected. I take off, I spun a little bit, he was off the line. Well, I caught up really quick. Basically, I made up 3 car lengths before I hit 30 miles an hour. Now he's slamming gears, trying to pull away. Um, and by the time I hit like 50 miles an hour, I already had about a car length or two on him. Hit my second gear, and I was gone. As a matter of fact, I was actually having so much fun whooping up on this guy. As we were passing by, I had the audacity to wave at him. I had all the pedal in the world, and I knew I was going to beat this guy. That's what a street sleeper is really all about. And as a matter of fact, as I was building this car, because it was gold, I often called it old gold because it was old and it was a Oldsmobile and gold color. It was such a cool car, and I do miss it. I still wish I had that car today. So there's your street sleeper story, and from the other side, from a guy who actually built one before. So there you have it. There's the end of this episode, your bonus. And as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is. Do something with yourself. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet. And as always, if nobody has told you that they love you today, Prince Magnum does. God bless you and have a happy 24. Thank you.
Good night, ladies.